Morning, Ger. How are you?
Was it you, just off the top of my head, somebody last week was like, look, Brian Fenton's not going to go his entire career without losing a championship match. There's a good chance he might now. There's like, it's better than even chance, I'd say, that he might.
I'd say the odds be maybe more than evens, Ger. But yeah, it's look, he hasn't lost yet in a way, and if he keeps going the way he's going and leading them the way he is around the middle of the field and being as defensively strong as he is and kicking in 4 or 5 points every game and causing havoc running through on goal, he certainly makes them hard to beat, and he's certainly somebody that Mayo need to obviously place massive emphasis going into the final.
Yeah, well, look, we'll talk about the state of the game in a moment, but I started the show by getting Nathan a little bit excited by just asking him how he feels, and then he couldn't help but talk himself into, do you know what, we have a chance.
Yeah, look, you know, Mayo have obviously the more to work on in the next 2 weeks. I think Dublin are quite sure of their game plan and quite sure of everything they're about. I think James Horan has done a fantastic job to get this Mayo team into this position this year. You know, if you just bring yourself back to your television screen or being in Croke Park last August and you know, the shell shock of 8 minutes into that second half, and Dublin come out and put 2-4, 2-5 up on the board, and you just look at the weary legs of the Mayo team, and you know, certainly there was a narrative around that they could be gone, and you know, COVID has helped them. They've had massive time off. They've done massive work in the gym. They're in a lot of their key guys are in frightening shape. Aidan O'Shea is, I would say, in the shape of his life. So too Cillian O'Connor. Tommy Conroy has obviously brought an awful lot. Diarmuid O'Connor is kind of going very well, being solid, but you know, there's more in him coming into a big final. And they're in a good place. They got COVID was good for their setup, having the county championship on fully before Mayo kicked into gear. I'm sure James Moran was around those grounds, and you know, looking in at these youngsters, kind of going, okay, you know, maybe he might have tried to go one more year with the older brigade, and I think definitely coming out of county grounds, he would have been excited at stages last year, and threw them into that Galway game, and they were devastating in that game. So they still have work to do, obviously. As I said, the kickouts is a major worry for me, because Dublin are so strong on opposition kickouts these days. So, you know, that's one area they'll have to get right. But, you know, Cillian O'Connor scoring 4-9, he obviously won't get that space and that time the next day, but you know, just that's a frightening stat for a player to score 4-9 in an All-Ireland semi-final. And I tell you one thing, Conor Sweeney had 1-9 at the other end, and you know, if he slots his goal chance in the first half, and if Tipperary play him through when he's wide open, standing at the back post, waiting to just catch it, drop it onto his foot into an open goal, he would have had 4-9 as well. So frightening performances from those two lads, and they look. It's a build-up, and it's a game where we know Mayo, and probably why Nathan is so enthusiastic is because of what Mayo have brought to the occasion more often than not. And I know last year that they had that collapse in the second half, but you know, they went in 2 points up at half-time, and it looked like to be going to plan, and Dublin came out and sucker punched them, and the hill erupted and Croke Park erupted, and you know, 5 minutes later the game was over.
Look, we'll obviously preview the game in the specifics of matchups and shape and kick-out strategy, and try and learn some of the lessons from the two hammerings at the weekend. Essentially, that we were very concerned about the two hammerings coming into it, that there was a possibility that both Mayo and Dublin would blow out their semi-final opponents. After the Cavan game, obviously, the narrative nationally became something needs to be done about Dublin. What are we going to do? And that's everything from defund the Dubs to give everybody else millions, to change the competition structures or split the Dubs. What are we going to do? Should we split the Dubs?
No, I don't think so now. I think if the GAA are going to do nothing to reverse the trend, maybe in 10, 15 years, they'll have to be split. But I don't think we need to go there. I think we need to look at, you know, this Dublin team. I refuse to kind of say that money has brought these players to this point and this success. I think it's helped. If you look at, you know, the stuff that Nathan was talking about earlier on, they've got a fantastic setup. They've no mileage. They're able to spend all their money, you know, in giving the team the best possible chance to go out and perform. That doesn't mean that it gets them over the line. It as I said, look, it helps with their backroom team. They've got a full-time sports psychologist. They've got a full-time lifestyle coach. They've got, you know, I went down the back of O'Moore Park when they were playing Westmeath. There was 6 guys on laptops down there. They've television screens in the dressing room at half-time. They've uploaded clips to go through where they're struggling. You know, just other counties just don't have the facilities or the finance to put them procedures in place. But, you know, these guys, for what they've done, the pitch, they've won every tight game they've had to win. This Dublin team, the Kerry team that I was on, and the Mayo team that Nathan is hoping can do it in 2 weeks' time. You know, they pushed them right to the pin of their collar as well. But Dublin always found a way in those tight games, and you know, splitting them for me is only if we don't do anything else. I think there's other stuff that we can do in the meantime. We obviously have to reverse the huge funding issue that is a factor. We obviously have to look at possibly pooling all the sponsorships from every county board into one big pot and try and divvy it out fairly. And if the likes of AIG are putting in more money than anybody else, well, maybe they have to go on the backs of some of the jerseys if their pot is going into all these teams. But you know, we do have to look at trying to. That's an immediate thing that they could do to one, give every chance to every team to have a full-time sports. I know teams that had to choose between GPS and other factors. And having to pick one or the other because
that's all the budget's for. Yeah. Can I make the case that actually the money does matter in the final minutes of the games? That actually that big backroom team and those screens in the dressing room at half time and the GPS data analysis actually gives Dublin an edge in closing out games because they're making better decisions on the basis of better information. So better inputs equals better outputs. It's any very basic business strategy in my view, and that actually having had a full-time lifestyle coach means that you are a little bit fitter. It means that you are capable of making better decisions under pressure, and that is one of the things that would separate them from Mayo in those tight games, that the finances do have an impact, and you do see that on the pitch. It doesn't diminish the players making the right decisions or their achievements, but it's just easier for those players to make those decisions than it is for players from other teams because they've got better support systems.
Look, it's a possible relative point, Gerard, but I go back to the you know the Kilkenny team of the Kerry team of the 80s, the Kilkenny team of the 2000s. You know, Manchester United are over there, Arsenal are over there now with all the money and all the backroom teams and all the sports psychologists and all the, but there's no stability there, Gerard, and Dublin have created fantastic stability around their CEO. John Costello has put fantastic foundations in place. Their under-21 manager for 4 or 5 years was Jim Gavin. He slotted in and took the senior job. Desi Farrell took the under-21 job for 6 years and then came in and took the senior job. So they have fantastic stability and ideas, and then they've huge internal leadership of the likes of Stephen Cluxton and these great leaders that they have in that dressing room. So, you know, money doesn't fix everything and doesn't win you trophies, as we well know, or else you know, the Premiership would be where United or Arsenal would be in a better position over the last number of years. But you know, it helps, of course it helps, but you know, I don't, in them closing moments, it's down to the preparation. If you see the likes of the Stephen Cluxton coming out, marking Tommy Walsh late on in the game last year, that has nothing to do with anything but, you know, coaching, scenario-based training, looking at every possible you know, outcome that could present itself in a game and preparing properly for it. When he conceded that goal against Killian Spillane last year, it was him that was in 2.5 hours early before training. Yes, he had a guy with a laptop and a goalkeeping coach, but you know, a lot of the top teams would have it, but then a lot of teams don't have that. So when I'm talking about, trying to pool sponsorship or trying to reverse the funding immediately, to try and help all these other counties to put these structures in place, that they have the chance that when their goalie concedes 3 or 4, and if he wants to take himself to the next level and help improve his team and have that outlook on it, that maybe he gets the training an hour early. But you're back to the scenario of that if he's travelling down from college and it takes 3 hours to drive down and he can't get there in time because of his studies, etc. Whereas that's the obvious, advantage the Dubs have where they don't have that cost of fellas driving to train. You heard Kevin McStay last night talk about, half his budget's gone and bringing guys down with mileage and trying to feed them and trying to get them back home. And just that time, I suppose, in the car is another obvious issue that we had in Kerry as well, with fellas driving from some rural parts in Kerry 2 hours up to training. But, this Dublin team, splitting them just doesn't sit well with me right now. If we do nothing and just hope the problem goes away and hope that this generational teams just packs up and goes away, that's not going to happen now with where they are, with the stability they have. With the processes they've put in, with the coaching structures that they have, with the backroom support, they're not going away. You see, they're in the 20s, they're in the final in 2 weeks as well, so they're not going anywhere. But it shouldn't be their issue. They don't have to go anywhere. They have to stay at the top because that's where they want to stay. But how do we figure out how to give every team the best possible chance to promote their brand in the right way? To get the best product out in the pitch and to put all the support structures around the group to help them try and be successful. It's not going to be overnight, and teams aren't just going to come along and win all Ireland when they get the money. That's obvious. But how do we help coaches? How do we help put more coaches around the schools? How do we help promote the game better in the county? How do we help get more sponsors on board? But that pooling of sponsorship, Ger, I've heard you talk about it before. I think that's something that immediately something that needs to be looked at, because some teams are barely struggling to get 20,000 off a sponsor.
Yeah, well, let me just briefly explain. So it's an idea completely ripped off the NFL, in that apart from the Dallas Cowboys, every single jersey that gets sold, irrespective of what team you're from, you get a cut of it. The other 31 teams share equally. So if Tom Brady goes to Tampa Bay and Tampa Bay sells 6 million jerseys, the Cleveland Browns get an equal cut of those jerseys than Tampa Bay. And it's just a way of sharing the wealth and making sure that everybody gets the same. So every time somebody buys a beanie hat that's New Era, that New Era deal is split 31 ways. You could easily do that so that...
Well, O'Neill's could look at doing that, and besides kind of riding the wave of the Dublin machine and sponsoring them, and every other county board broke from trying to buy gear for all their teams. There's definitely something in that. But, I just think it's something that can happen quickly, but the GAA have to also look at the output and the spending that's going into Dublin, and the thing that they did, Sean Kelly brought in for Dublin in 2003. There was a worry in the city, and possibly rightfully so, that football was going to be left behind, the rugby and soccer inside in the areas. When I was going up there, it was all Liverpool jerseys and Chelsea jerseys. But for the last number of years, whenever I'm driving around Dublin, it's hoodies, tracksuits, jerseys, training tops. It's all Dublin. That's all you see around the place. And this current bunch of Dublin players have inspired this generation of youth in the city. And you've all the coaches going into the schools. You've the unbelievable setup in all the clubs. You've 31 under 10 teams in some clubs, and structure set up for them for tournaments and all this. So they're in a really good place now. Going around to the schools, is Pat Gilroy was saying last night, is a lot of that is just to introduce football to the kids. And I would say at this stage, it's pretty well introduced to them now, because their team is completely dominant, and their team is putting on a show every week and doing it the right way on the pitch. So maybe there's likes of lesser counties around the place that maybe the kids are sick of going to games where they're a bunch of boys get hammered in a qualifier, and that's the end of the year, and there's no real build-up, or there's no...
Can we talk about that? Can we talk about that? Because I think that, like, for so many teams and so many players, that the desire to go the extra mile. When you were training to for the last season, the what do you think of that job, Roddy? That season when you were doing that training, if you didn't think you had a chance of winning, would you have gone the extra mile? I'm not sure. I think that, like, if you weren't from Kerry, if you'd been in a county that was routinely beaten first day out in Munster or Leinster and then beaten in the second qualifier or the first qualifier, would you have been as absolutely gee-eyed to become the footballer that you became that year?
Yeah, possibly not. Possibly not. But it's a good point, and that's why, you know, I think, you know, and we spoke about it with Jim McGuinness, you know, last week. You know, having that second tier competition, and we see it in Kerry in junior championship, intermediate championship, senior championship. We see it on you know, we see the club story when teams get all the way to Croker and win that trophy. There isn't huge amount of numbers in the crowd. There isn't 40,000 in Croke Park for these games, but you know, it's an All Ireland and it's recognised as an All Ireland, and you know, the biggest thing, whatever they do with this Tailteann Cup, you know, it has to get TV exposure. It has to be double headers. You know, it has to be something that you know, maybe it's something like, you know, that the bottom, when it gets into the kind of playoff scenario or knockout scenario, that the lower ranked divisional team gets the home draw, where, you know, you have bigger teams going to smaller venues, you know, bringing the big teams down around the country to smaller venues and really trying to promote the game in those areas and obviously give their team a better chance of letting the grass grow a foot and a half and tightening in the pitch and doing whatever they can do to help themselves try and get through to the next knockout phase, but to give them a genuine, you know, chances to win things. And yes, they can go win their provincial championship, whether that be, you know, at the end of the league or the start of the league, whatever way they want to work that, but give them reasonable chances that they can go to win trophies and have realistic chances of winning their division in their league, having a crack off of a provincial championship. And if all else fails and they get knocked out, you know, that they can go and try and build on something and try and win something. But they have to have the guarantee that it's not going to be a Tommy Murphy, that it's going to get more recognition from the Joe McDonagh. And I think the Joe McDonagh is thrown at them, but you know, possibly the Joe McDonagh isn't getting enough. But hurling is such a kind of, it's played it's played all around Ireland, but like it's really predominant in a number of counties and not so in a lot of others. Whereas football is everywhere, really prominent in every county, probably maybe bar Kilkenny. So you know, that I don't think that happens, and there's huge interest in all those counties in the game, but they have to get the promise of big days, whether it's provincial grounds or their own ground, but big crowds, TV coverage for their sponsors to get on board, you know, and then kids are coming to these games and they're seeing their team play and not get hammered and be a damp squib and be out of the championship, but almost, could they win a last 16 game? Could they win a last 8 game? Could they get a bit of momentum to build on for the year previous? Obviously, the winner of the Tailteann Cup goes straight into the Sam Maguire next year. All these things to try and really motivate these players, as you rightly say, to go the extra mile, to get the training a bit earlier. Because I query that as well, how you know, but you know, even talking to Paul Galvin and his time in Wexford, like he said, his guys gave him an awful lot, huge amount of effort and commitment to training. And you know, so I don't know what their idea is. It's fine for you to say that about me, and it's fine for me to possibly agree with you, but I don't know the inner beliefs of teams around the county or around the country and what they see as success, and maybe they are going to the pits to get their team out of Division 4 or Division 3 or whatever, but I think it's summertime football, Ger. It's getting into Croke Park for a final, maybe play the Tailteann Cup games on Friday night where they're on TV. We'd all be at home on Friday night. We'd all probably watch it, and we'd all watch them games on TV because they're all good games between and build the stars around that and get a little or an AIB in to really promote that. I think that's the worry they have, and they've a right to feel that way. They've seen how the Tommy Murphy was thrown together and not given the publicity it deserves, and then probably looking at the Joe McDonagh and saying similar. So they'll have to get some guarantees from the TV companies, from the the GAA that this is going to be promoted in the right way.
All right, look, maybe we should talk a little bit about the actual games themselves then. Was there anything that Cavan did that worked against Dublin on Saturday night, Kieran?
I think I think Cavan did an awful lot right. I think they did well. I think they represented Ulster well. They went for it. They went for it from the get-go in the throw-in. They attacked the game. But just that, it's been a long time since they've been in Croke Park, and it's been a long time since they've been in Croke Park against a Dublin side. And the pitch is so big, they're so fast and strong that, it is a kind of an eye-opener, because if you looked at what Cavan did to teams in the second halves, predominantly of all their game, they squeezed the life out of teams, they turned teams over, they had massive comebacks, huge momentum periods in it. You can't get momentum against Dublin, because they're too smart and they're too good. The last team to probably get a bit of momentum was in 2016, when we put a full press on them and got the 2 goals. I wish half-time never came that day, because we were really starting to put the squeeze on them. But again, half-time they went in, their analysis had what was going on. They probably had the press up on the big screen. How do we fix this? What are the issues around it? And come out and deal with it. And deal with it they did. And they did it reversed around in the space of 10 minutes. So, they are very hard to get momentum against. That's what Mayo will find hard in 2 weeks, because they're just so economic on all their kickouts. Cluxton was 17 from 19 again the last day. Just getting the ball up the pitch and then scoring and right decision making is just so good by them. They just don't take bad decisions.
Pre-match,
they all know.
Sorry, just on that point, pre-match and the kickouts in particular, Peter Canavan did a pick your poison piece of analysis where they go long, they score a goal, they go short, they score a goal against Meath. At least from Mayo's perspective, they've been in big games against Dublin. They will know this, so they won't have this is new shock that the majority of the players won't have this is new shock, and the new kids obviously will do, but they're very, very athletic, those new young players coming in, so you would expect that some of them will be able to manage, and the plan will be to have a variance, so it won't be one or the other from Mayo's perspective. So is that something that we know that Mayo will be able to do that will be different from anything Dublin have faced this year at least?
Yeah, look, Mayo have the best tackling forward lineup outside of Dublin, and the best strategy around how they're trying to get the ball back. We saw it yesterday. They were in the full press for most of the game. They don't sit back, they don't fall back off you. Maybe they'll throw different things at Dublin. Maybe they might do that for a period of 6 or 7 minutes in the final to see how it's going. But predominantly they will be up, they will be tackling, they will be moving you side to side. I think they'll put some type of a press on from frees at stages to try and get Stephen Cluxton not to be 17 from 19, to make him go long, but go long that where you've lots of bodies up there, and that you're trying to gamble on it. They leave it 2-on-2 inside, which would be a worry with the calibre that Dublin will have inside there. But they're doing it the right way. They know what they're about. They're pressing up. Their defenders playing in the back two are playing from in front. Very like Dublin do it as well. When Dublin are up in that press, you see Mick Fitzsimons, they showed a clip of him in the Sunday game. He's playing 7 or 8 yards in front of his man, because he knows the ball is so far away that it can't be kicked in over his head. And plus he's got Cluxton razor sharp on his toes behind him, that if they do go long over his head, that he's out in it. So the way both teams are set up is going to make for that middle, the middle of the pitch, that 16, 17, 18 players in the middle of the pitch. There's going to be a huge lack of space.
Yeah.
There's going to be a huge amount of bodies. Dublin will be pushing you down the line. Mayo will be trying to use the Owen McLaughlins and the Paddy Durkins to break out through it. But that middle will be fascinating, and who handles the ball in there better, who makes the better decisions in there, and who doesn't turn it over as much has a huge bearing on the game. But yes, they will have to do their homework, and they will have to try and upset Cluxton and that's not easy, and try and push up and make it really hard for them. But my fear is what Dublin are going to do on the other side to David Clark, and I think if Mayo, I said last night on Sky that Mayo will have to go really short in the final are really long. I take the middle one out of it. I think the middle one got him in huge trouble against the Tipperary side that let's call a spade, like, you know, ran through them yesterday. And you could say the boys maybe switched off and subs were on, but you don't see them excuses from Dublin. They don't allow that to happen. They don't allow that situation to develop. And, you know,
I think coughing up to 3 goals.
No, I think David Clark is going to put the ball down, and I think he's going to tap it out short, or he's going to go as long as he can. And the balance that Mayo will have to get is that they have some type of understanding that when he's going long, so that when he does go long, that they can really crowd, you know, that middle third with his... Yeah, and even more, even more, try and get +2 in underneath it, or have a call that he's going right or left. So fellas know early enough to get out to this area and really try and win the ball in the middle of the field with Dublin up in the press, and then try and get it into your Aidan O'Shea and Cillian O'Connor as quick as possible.
You mentioned those two, right? We're nearly out of time here. The last point that I want to make, from a Mayo perspective, the reason why I think Nathan should be excited is that this is the first time that Mayo have had everybody fit and playing well. I don't remember Cillian O'Connor not having a shoulder injury or coming back from a leg injury. I don't remember Diarmuid O'Connor being fully fit and like not being subbed in, or being an injury doubt before the game and then mysteriously appearing and then disappearing after half an hour. I don't remember Aidan O'Shea being fit at the same time, and I don't remember their bench being full of cavalry who you can trust to come on for 15, 20 minutes and think, okay, they're actually going to have a legitimate impact on the quality of this game. Granted, Lee Keegan is not at football at the level that he was at, and some of the players who are out of the team will be a miss, but for the first time, they're fully fit. They're 6-point underdogs at the moment. They will believe that they have a chance.
Oh, they will absolutely, and and they've got an excellent backroom team, and what Horan has done by bringing in McDonald, and you know, I could see him talking to guys in the warm up yesterday in different drills that they were doing, and he was trying to change the movement at times, making runs for the ball, and you know, they have a lot going for them, okay? They're dynamic across their half-forward line. They're extremely fit, and they're a great bunch of tacklers in their half-forward line. So, look, you have a lot of bases covered there. Inside, the addition of Tommy Conroy has been absolutely huge. He's a really, really good player, dynamic player, wants to take you on every time he gets it, is not overly selfish, makes the right decision for the team. Aidan O'Shea, as I said, and Cillian O'Connor, I think are in the best shape they ever have been. I think Aidan played the position well yesterday by being inside and getting a few in over the top, and he was linking out in front and taking a huge amount of pressure off of the other two, and being that focal ball winner that I believe he's destined to be. And if he is to bring Sam back to Mayo, he'll have to play that role more as he can the next day. Obviously, if they're getting, you know, dominated on kickouts or in the middle of the field, yes, he has to come out and play that role too. But I don't want them to get caught between, you know, caught between two roles the next day and end up not really doing either. I think him inside is a really good place for them to start, because he's so... Dublin won't be able to kind of drop off like they do on Merchant and different players dropping in the last day, because Mayo are so powerful in that middle eight and so quick that they'll break through, and then that guy has to come out. Then maybe you pop a little hand pass into Aidan O'Shea in the D and run off him. You saw how good his hands were for Cillian O'Connor's second goal yesterday. So they have an awful lot going for them, right? Matty Ruan is playing really well and has real good legs in the middle of the field, and probably will have to go and nullify Fenton, and that will have to be his main job. Maybe he mightn't be able to get through for the 2 or 3 goal chances he had yesterday. Maybe he just really focuses down on Fenton. And then, you know, Dublin's backline don't get enough credit, and that's going to be the fascinating battle for me. You know, the John Small, James McCarthy, Fitzsimons, Davy Byrne, Owen Merchant. They don't get enough credit, but yeah, they're really good, and not only are they really good man to man, but they're really good. They're really good about knowing what their roles are. They're really good about knowing the system, who's dropping, what the guy dropping is doing, what angles he is cutting out. Fascinating to look at them, and I do a good bit of watching them from behind the goals. You know, fascinating to look at how they communicate and talk around that. And then obviously, look, you've Cluxton leading the whole charge. You know, and that's going to be the huge point of, can this Mayo forward line that I think is probably their best. As you say, they're all in really good shape right now, and they're all moving really well. And if they can go toe to toe with that back six for Dublin, and cause them problems, that'll be a big, huge psychological lift for Mayo on the day. Yeah, if they're out there on the day and they've been going really well all year, and all of a sudden they can't get away from the Fitzsimons and the Davy Byrnes, and they can't break past the +1 dropping system that Dublin have, that's when doubt starts to possibly creep in, Gerard. But they do have reason to be very hopeful. But, you know, it's still Dublin's to lose. Mayo have to have nearly what Kerry got the first day last year. You know, maybe someone sent off, someone black carded early, you know, have a lead going into the dying moments, and they have to try and hope that Dublin have that kind of slightly off day where they don't really perform, even though Kerry did a lot in the first game with their press. Yeah. That's what Kerry people most looked at after that first game. Jesus, yeah, that press is great. Yeah, we got caught for the goal, but hopefully they'll go back and they'll rectify it in video, and they'll say, okay, when the forwards break out to the wings, hold the middle and don't concede a goal. If they get over the top of you, if they get one over to Con, don't concede a goal. Let them chip their point, because they get so many scores anyway. But, you know, unfortunately for Kerry in the replay, we saw no press for the game. We saw Dublin having every kick out. And if Dublin have every kick out and have all their own possessions, game over. You're going to need to score 129, 130 to beat them, because they're just so efficient up front. So what you have to make them do is not get all of their own possession from their own kickouts. Yeah. All right, look, we've got plenty of time to get into the nitty-gritty of that, and hopefully it'll be a drama-free intervening period and everybody will arrive fit and well on the day. Kieran, good stuff. Thanks a million. Thanks guys.